Picture this. You're in the heat of the moment. Hearts pounding like war drums in an ancient arena. Someone's just unleashed a verbal dagger straight at your chest, a cutting remark that slices through the air. Laced with venom and aimed to wound. The room freezes. Every pair of eyes locks onto you. Expectant, electric with anticipation. Your pulse races. Hot words bubbling up like lava from a volcano ready to erupt. One slip, one fiery retort, and the whole scene explodes into chaos. But wait. What if I told you that right here, in this razor-edge instant, lies your greatest opportunity? Not to strike back, but to rise above, like a phoenix from the ashes. Calm, unshakable, and utterly commanding. This isn't some dusty philosophy lecture pulled from a forgotten scroll. No, this is battle-tested wisdom from the Stoics. Those iron-willed Roman emperors and Greek sages who stared down tyrants, betrayals, and the brutal whims of fate without flinching. They didn't conquer empires just with swords. They tamed the wild beast within themselves first. And today, in our world of endless online trolls, heated boardroom clashes, and family dinners gone sideways, their secrets can arm you with something far deadlier than anger: unbreakable poise. You see, the real victory isn't in demolishing your opponent with a torrent of insults or a viral clapback. That's fleeting, like smoke vanishing in the wind. True power? It's the quiet art of steering the storm yourself, choosing your response with the precision of a master archer. Hitting the mark without ever drawing blood. It's not weakness, oh no. Far from it. It's the raw, forged-in fire strength of someone who knows that losing your cool hands your enemy the reins. I'm talking about responses that don't just deflect the blow, they redirect it. Turning potential disaster into a display of your grace, your intellect, and maybe, just maybe, a bridge to mutual respect. Let me paint a vivid scene from history to drive it home. Imagine Emperor Marcus Aurelius, that philosopher king perched on his throne amid the Roman legion's thunderous marches. Facing whispers of treason from his own inner circle, instead of bellowing decrees or summoning guards, he pauses, ink quill in hand, and etches in his private journal. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Or, as he so elegantly put it, the best answer to anger is intentional silence. Boom. That's not passive, it's a thunderclap wrapped in serenity. It's the difference between a roaring lion and a still mountain. One terrifies in the moment. The other endures forever. Now, lean in close because I'm about to hand you the keys to this vault of timeless tactics. Over the next few minutes, we'll unpack 5 razor-sharp Stoic responses that have silenced hotheads, diffused powder kegs, and even flipped foes into friends for more than 2 millennia. These aren't rote scripts to memorize like a bad infomercial, they're flexible tools. Honed by philosophers who lived through wars, plagues, and palace intrigues. And trust me, the third one? It's a game changer. A sly pivot that turns their assault back on them like a mirror in a funhouse, forcing the aggressor to confront their own shadows. Suddenly, they're the ones squirming, exposed, while you stand tall, unscathed. But before we dive into the arsenal, do me a favor. If you're tired of those post-argument regrets that keep you up at night, replaying every what if like a bad loop, smash that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss a dose of this life-upgrading wisdom. We're in this quest for cooler heads and sharper minds together. Let's level up your inner Stoic and make every confrontation a masterclass in cool. Alright, deep breath. Response number 1. I see your point. Help me understand your reasoning. Simple words, right? But oh, the alchemy they unleash. Forget the fantasy of wielding a gleaming sword of sarcasm or a barrage of bullet-point comebacks. The deadliest disarmament comes not from aggression, but from the soft glow of genuine curiosity, a lantern in the fog of fury that invites light where shadows once ruled. Think about it. When tempers flare and accusations fly like arrows in a siege, your attacker has geared up for war. They've rehearsed their rage in their mind's eye, picturing you crumbling under their onslaught, cornered and clawing for air. But what happens when you sidestep the battlefield entirely? When, instead of charging headlong into the fray, you extend an olive branch of inquiry? It's like yanking the rug out from under a charging bull. The momentum falters. Confusion reigns, and suddenly, The aggressor is off balance, teetering on the edge of their own uncharted territory. Let me pull back the curtain on a real-life skirmish that etched this lesson into my soul. A few years back, I was knee-deep in a high-stakes team huddle. The kind where the air crackles with unspoken ambitions and the scent of fresh coffee masks the undercurrent of stress. I'd poured my heart and late nights into crafting this project proposal, a meticulously researched blueprint for revamping our marketing strategy. Complete with data dives, competitor analyses, and forecasts that could make a spreadsheet sing. I was midway through unveiling it on the big screen, charts blooming like fireworks, when bam, interruption city. My colleague David, all sharp suit and sharper tongue, leans forward like a hawk spotting prey and launches his strike. This is utterly detached from reality. Folks, it's obvious you haven't got a clue about the market's pulse right now. This proposal? It's a pipe dream cooked up in an ivory tower. Whoosh. The words hit like a slap from a frigid wind. My cheeks flushing crimson as indignation surged through me like wildfire. In that split-second heartbeat, my brain screamed for retaliation. How dare you? I've cross-referenced this with 3 industry reports, consulted 2 VPs, and modeled scenarios till my eyes crossed. I could already envision the verbal volley, facts flying, voices rising, the meeting devolving into a coliseum of egos. But then, like a whisper from the gods, that stoic pause descended. I inhaled slowly, the room's hum fading to a distant echo, and met his gaze with steady eyes. I see your point, David, I said, my voice even as a mountain lake. Can you help me understand your reasoning? Which specific aspects feel unrealistic to you? The pricing model, the target demographics, or something else? Silence crashed over the conference table like a velvet curtain dropping at intermission. Head swiveled toward David, the spotlight now his unwilling co-star. You could almost hear the gears grinding in his head, the frantic scramble for ammunition he hadn't bothered to load. Well, generally speaking, he stammered, his fingers drumming an anxious tattoo on the armrest. It's just, the whole vibe doesn't align with. His voice trailed into the ether, specifics evaporating like mist under the sun. Minutes stretched like taffy as he fumbled, grasping at straws that dissolved on contact. Finally, with a sheepish exhale that deflated the tension like a punctured balloon, he confessed, honestly, I skimmed the executive summary on the way in. This was more gut reaction than anything. Let me take another look tonight. Can you feel the shift? In that one pivot, the battlefield transformed into a bridge. No blood spilled, no bridges burned, just a gentle nudge from emotional thunder to rational sunlight. And here's the stoic magic at its core. This response doesn't just buy you time, it compels a metamorphosis. It herds the conversation from the wilds of vague venom, unrealistic, naive, clueless, into the structured pastures of precise explanation. Most verbal assailants are bluffing with bluster, armed with feelings but light on facts. Press for details, and watch the house of cards quiver. This isn't some modern hack, either. It's the echo of Socrates himself, that barefoot gadfly of Athens whom the Stoics revered like a North Star. Picture him in the bustling agora, sun-baked marble underfoot, merchants hawking wares amid the din of debate, accused of corrupting the youth or mocking the gods. He doesn't hurl defiance, he probes with that trademark humility. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. It's a disarming dance, acknowledging the possibility of your own blind spots while subtly illuminating theirs. You're not admitting defeat, you're extending an invitation to truth, wrapped in the velvet glove of openness. And let's linger here a moment, because why does this stick? Imagine the aggressor's inner world. They've armored up in righteous fury, convinced their broadside is unassailable. But your question? It's a key turning in a lock they didn't know existed, forcing them to audit their own arsenal. Often, they unearth emptiness, a hollow echo where substance should be. In that revelation, defenses crack, not with a bang, but a quiet sigh. Vulnerability creeps in, and with it, the chance for connection. David didn't become my best buddy overnight, but that exchange? It thawed the frost between us, paving the way for collaborative tweaks that strengthened the proposal tenfold. So, next time the barbs come whistling your way, at work, in traffic, or across the dinner table, pause, breathe, deploy this. I see your point. Help me understand. Watch the flames flicker and fade. Curiosity conquering conquest. It's not just a response, it's a revolution in restraint. And hey, if that resonated, drop a comment below. What's the wildest confrontation you've ever diffused? Share your stories. We're building a community of calm conquerors here. But hold on, because we're just warming up. Response number 2 awaits. A gem that flips presumption on its head with the grace of a fencer's parry. Stay locked in. Your wiser, wittier self is emerging with every word. And just like that, with a simple spark of curiosity, you've flipped the script, from dodging arrows to charting the course. All without firing a single shot. Isn't it wild how a question can quiet a storm? Now, let's linger on that first response a beat longer. Because its true genius lies in how it unfolds like a velvet trap. Springing shut without a hint of aggression. Picture yourself not as the beleaguered defender in a verbal foxhole, but as the steady captain at the helm, gently steering the ship through choppy waters. What's utterly brilliant about this approach is that it catapults you from mere target, bristling under fire, into the quiet architect of the dialogue. No more scrambling to shield your flanks, instead, you're the one posing the maps, inviting them to plot their path. Suddenly, the onus shifts. They must unearth and lay bare their treasures of thought, proving their stance with the weight of words, while you stand serene, unburdened by the need to fortify your own walls. Delve deeper, and the psychology here reveals itself like sunlight-piercing morning fog, fascinating. Almost poetic in its elegance. When folks lob those fiery salvos, they're rarely architects of argument, more often. They're sailors adrift on waves of raw feeling, unmoored from the anchor of reason. Their barbs? Knee-jerk flares, born of haste, not honed critique. They haven't mapped the terrain of their own claims, just hurled them into the fray like stones from a slingshot. But you, with that one probing plea for their reasoning, you summon the lighthouse of logic. You coax their whirlwind mind to still, to sift emotion from evidence. And in that hush, revelation dawns. They pause, they probe inward, and frequently, the light exposes the attack for what it was, a hollow echo. Unfounded and fleeting. What felt like thunder moments ago, now it's just mist, dissolving under scrutiny. Deploy this gem, then, against the ghosts of vague verdicts, the sweeping swipes of, "That's ridiculous," or, "You're way off base." Those airy indictments that sting without substance. But here's the heartbeat of its success. Your voice must hum with unfeigned warmth. A true thirst for insight, not a sly undercurrent of sarcasm. Imagine delivering it with the wide-eyed wonder of a child unearthing a secret garden. Not the arched brow of a courtroom cross-examiner. Lean in, soften your gaze, let it land as an open door, not a gauntlet thrown. If it tips into challenge or condescension, poof, the magic misfires, hardening hearts instead of melting defenses. Authenticity is your invisible ink. Without it, the page stays blank. This tactic shines brightest against the serial skeptics, those armchair critics who delight in demolition but dread the demolition derby of details. You know the type. Quick with the quip, glacial on the groundwork, flinging judgments like confetti at a parade they didn't plan. And in a crowd, it's pure theater. The group becomes your silent jury, eyes widening as the challenger either rises to reveal riches of rationale, elevating the exchange, or stumbles into the spotlight of their own sparsity. Unmasked as mere mischief maker. Yet through it all, you glide untouched, dignity draped like a fine cloak. You're extending a hand, not a hook. Share your map, let's walk it together. No counterstrike, no scorched earth, just a calm call for the facts to fuel the fire. It's invitation wrapped in armor, opportunity disguised as inquiry. Of course, life being the sly storyteller it is, sometimes that inquiry unearths gold. Their elaboration arrives not as smoke, but solid stone, legitimate laments. Insights sharp as a well-forged blade. A flaw glints in the light, undeniable, demanding your gaze. And that's no defeat, it's the doorway to our next masterstroke. Where concession becomes conquest. Enter response number 2. You're absolutely right. And here's what I'm going to do about it. The sweet paradox, yielding to triumph. Surrendering not to defeat, but to the swift current of strategy. In the arena of conflict, where pride puffs chests and excuses erect barricades, the quickest path to victory often winds through the valley of admission. And in that pivotal client meeting we just unpacked, where owning the slip-up flipped the script from standoff to synergy, you could almost feel the air lighten, like storm clouds parting to reveal a collaborative sunrise. The shift hit like a cool breeze sweeping through a stuffy room. The client's shoulders, once hunched in guarded frustration, eased into an open stance, arms unfolding across the table. Gone was the barrage against our track record. In its place bloomed a flurry of thoughtful probes. How will this tracking system flag risks early? What metrics will you prioritize in those updates? The hours that followed? A symphony of shared brainstorming, sketching out safeguards and timelines on napkins and notepads. Far removed from the drudgery of justifying old oversights. We weren't hunkered in the trenches anymore, we were architects, building bridges over the gaps. Why does this response land with such quiet thunder? Peel back the layers, and it's rooted in the raw psychology of what critics truly crave. Deep down, when someone levels a charge, they're fishing for one of two catches. Either your flustered flailing, those frantic alibis and deflections that only confirm their suspicions. Handing them the trophy of, "I told you so," or, far more satisfying, the sight of you rolling up your sleeves, eyes locked on the fix, treating their words not as weapons but as wake-up calls. Opt for that second path, and poof, critique morphs into camaraderie. The critic's edge dulled by your decisiveness. It's like dousing a spark before it ignites the dry grass. The mental mechanics here? They're a revelation, profound as an ancient riddle solved under starlight. Folks gear up for pushback when they spotlight a snag. It's the script they've rehearsed in their heads, a clash of justifications. A whirlwind of finger-pointing. The familiar dance of dodged accountability. But you rewrite the scene entirely. By claiming the misstep outright and unveiling a roadmap of remedies. You sidestep the skirmish, showcasing a brand of command that's all quiet confidence, no bluster. Just backbone. It's the leadership that lingers, forging admiration where friction might have festered. Respect earned in the forge of forthrightness rather than shattered on the anvil of argument. Echoing the Stoic sage Epictetus, who urged, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." This move is philosophy made flesh. Swallowing pride to seize solutions? That's not retreat, it's the truest flex of fortitude. A testament that your compass points to progress, not ego's fragile throne. Who wouldn't rally behind someone who prizes puzzles over posturing? Yet, and this is the linchpin, the fine print etched in wisdom, wield this only when the grievance rings true. When the fault line truly cracks under your watch. If the assault veers into the unjust, lobbing blame for tempests beyond your skies or shadows you didn't cast. Deploying it here would ring hollow, inviting more chaos. The spell's potency pulses precisely from that raw readiness, embracing the unvarnished truth. Then charging forward with cures. But solely when the mirror reflects your own hand in the matter. What seals its disarming grace, though, is how it yanks the rug from under their ire, like diffusing a bomb by simply handing over the key. They surfaced the snag because, at heart, they hunger for mending, not mayhem. Commit to the cure in that instant, and you've delivered their unspoken desire on a silver platter. The fuel for fury? Evaporated, no ammunition left in the chamber. No grudge to grind. Adversaries dissolve into allies at warp speed. The debate over, if, eclipsed by the thrill of, how. That once sharp critic? They pivot, often emerging as your fiercest champion. Won over by the rare alchemy of ears that truly hear and hands that truly heal. Still, not every salvo springs from sincere soil. Some souls thrive on the spark of spite alone. Jabbing just to watch you jolt. That's provocation's pure poison, demanding a deft dodge from a whole new playbook. And speaking of which, cue response number 3. That's an interesting perspective. What made you think of it? The subtle sorcery of letting silence be your sword, or rather, letting them forge their own folly. The most refined route to hush a heckler? Mirror their mischief back, not with mockery, but with the soft probe of poised interest in their inner workings. It's a gentle nudge that compels confession. Either they own the absurdity outright. Tails tucked, or they burrow deeper into a burrow of their own making. Walls closing in on illogic they can't escape. I watched this unfold like a master painter's stroke at a dinner party just last year. The kind where candlelight flickers over laughter and lingering wineglasses. My friend Rachel, let's shield her with that name, a trailblazing freelance graphic designer who'd sculpted a thriving empire from pixels and persistence over a solid decade. Amid the clink of forks and easy chatter, a newcomer at the table, face flushed from the first pour, lobbed a barb laced with lazy disdain. Freelancing must be a dream gig. You know, cash for doodling on a screen all day. Zero stakes, no strings. The words hung heavy, a deliberate dig designed to draw blood, slicing through the warmth like a chill draft. The table tensed. You could sense the collective wince. Forks pausing mid-air. Rachel, poised as a statue in the garden glow, might have mustered a manifesto, unspooling her Rolodex of blue-chip clients. The dawn-to-dusk marathons blending coffee with code. The high-wire artistry that birthed brands from blank canvases. But Rachel? She didn't flinch or fire back. Instead, like a gentle breeze redirecting a storm, she met his gaze with a warm, unwavering smile and let the words flow soft as silk. That's an interesting perspective. What made you think of that? The table fell into a hush, thick as the pause before a punchline lands. The man, let's call him the unwitting jester, blinked, his wine glass hovering mid-sip, clearly blindsided by the curveball. No armor of defensiveness, no volley of vindication, just this serene curiosity hanging in the air like an open invitation. He shifted in his seat, the color rising in his cheeks as he groped for footing. Well, I mean, it seems like. The fragments tumbled out, jagged and half-formed, each one chipping away at his own facade, painting him not as the clever critic he'd fancied, but as someone fumbling in the dim light of his own assumptions. Finally, after what felt like an eternity stretched across silverware and sidelong glances, he deflated with a rueful chuckle. I guess I don't really know what freelance design work involves. Never thought about the nuts and bolts of it. There it was, the quiet unraveling. The whole gathering bore witness, not to a takedown, but to a tender truth unearthed, his ignorance laid bare, prejudices peeking out like weeds in a manicured lawn. No one laughed. The moment carried its own gravity, a subtle shift that left him smaller, wiser perhaps, and the evening's warmth intact. Isn't it mesmerizing, how this response gleams like a hidden gem in the rough? On the surface, it's all wide-eyed wonder, a nod to their viewpoint as if savoring a rare vintage. But beneath, it's a masterstroke of revelation, coaxing the speaker to step into their own spotlight, where the glare exposes not your vulnerabilities, but the flimsiness of their foundation, or the shadows of spite they dragged along. They arrived swinging, convinced they'd land a knockout blow on you, only to find their fist glancing off air, bruising their own knuckles in the mirror of self-scrutiny. You've handed them a spool of silken rope, innocent as a gift, and watched, without a whisper of malice, as they weave it into their own gentle noose. The sheer elegance? It blooms from that veil of guileless charm. No edge of sarcasm sharpens your tongue, no confrontation clouds the air. You drift in like a fellow traveler, voice laced with the honest spark of someone unraveling a riddle. Tell me the thread that wove this thought, I'm all ears. Yet in that whisper, psychology weaves its subtle web, nudging them to autopsy their own impulse, to chase the why through the tangled underbrush of bias or bluster. And oh, how most barbs wither under such light, provocations that strutted in bold now shrink, threadbare and trembling, unable to withstand the soft siege of sense. Channeling the emperor's quiet thunder, Marcus Aurelius penned it plain. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. This reply? It's that creed carved in calm, while they claw to drag you into the mud of meanness. You perch above, poised and probing, a beacon of poise amid the pettiness. The disparity dazzles, especially to the onlookers, your steady glow against their flickering flame. Dignity draped over you like a cloak of midnight silk. Everyone sees it, the emperor's new grace, unrumpled. But delivery, that's the delicate dance, the heartbeat humming beneath. Infuse it with that unalloyed curiosity, the tilt of a head like a bird spotting a new horizon. And let their echoes do the heavy lifting. A trace of mockery? It sours the spell, twisting invitation into indictment, reflection into recoil. Keep it pure, and it flows like water over stone, effortless, eternal. This tactic thrives on the barren ground of baseless judgments. Those snap verdicts born of fog, not fire, prejudice parading as punch. It's your Swiss Army knife for any arena. The boardroom's polished battles. The cocktail hour's casual crossfires. Even the family feast where a misplaced zinger slices the turkey too soon. And the aftermath? It forks like a well-trod path. Either enlightenment dawns, and they murmur an, "I'm sorry," soft as snowfall, mending the moment with newfound grace, or they dig in, heels to the earth, piling on proofs that only bury them deeper in the quicksand of their own quagmire. Heads or tails, the coin lands in your favor, no swords drawn, no spoils claimed, just victory veiled in velvet. At its root, the aggressor rarely maps their malice before launch, it's a flare from the gut. Assumptions autopilot, bias bubbling unchecked like a hidden spring. Prod the source, trace the trail, and poof, the path crumbles to dust. No bedrock of reason, just echoes in an empty chamber. They stare at the void they voiced, and in that gaze, growth glimmers, or at least, the game ends on your terms. Yet shadows persist. Not every storm bends to breeze. Some souls, armored in obstinacy, scoff at sense, curiosity's caress, even the comedy of their own contradictions. They're wedded to the fray. Come what may, for those unyielding tempests, we summon our fourth sentinel. Response number 4. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Picture gratitude as the ultimate gauntlet toss. Nothing quells a quarrel quite like thanks unbidden. Blooming unexpected as wildflowers in cracked concrete. When barbs bite or gripes grind, meet them not with shields, but with sincere salute for their candor. It's a pivot profound. Hostility's high horse stumbles into the meadow of dialogue. The attacker adrift, arrow knocked but nowhere to aim. Confusion creeps in. Do they press the pedal, or pause in the peculiar peace? This elixir pulled me from pandemonium's brink 2 years back, in a neighborly dust-up that could have curdled into chronic Cold War. I'd just welcomed a scruffy rescue pup into the fold, his tail a whirlwind of hope amid my unpacked boxes. Unbeknownst to me, while I clocked hours at the office, he'd serenade the dawn with solos, barks ricocheting off quiet cul-de-sacs like errant fireworks. Ignorance was bliss until dusk one evening, when my neighbor, face etched with exhaustion, voice a low rumble, cornered me at the fence line, stormed across the dew-kissed grass of my front yard one crisp evening. As I stood there rifling through the day's mail, his face a thundercloud ready to burst. "Your damn dog is turning the whole block into a madhouse," he bellowed. Veins bulging like twisted roots under his skin, non-stop yapping from 6 a.m. Sharp until you drag yourself home. It's downright rude. And hell, some of us are this close to dialing animal control and letting them sort it out. Oof. That hit like a rogue wave crashing over the mailbox. Salty and unrelenting, my gut twisted, instincts firing on all cylinders. Launch into the litany of my newbie status with this rescue mutt. Swear up and down that I'd been knee-deep in troubleshooting. Or fire back that a dash of decency in delivery might have opened doors instead of slamming them. The air crackled with that familiar standoff energy. The kind where words could spark a fence-line feud lasting seasons. But I hit pause, drawing in a slow lungful of twilight air laced with jasmine from the neighbor's hedge. And let the stoic calm settle like dust after a stampede. "I really appreciate you sharing that with me," I said, voice steady as the oak shading the path, eyes meeting his without a flinch. "I had no idea this was going on, seriously. I'm grateful you trusted me enough to flag it face to face, instead of stewing in silence till it boiled over." Wham! The alchemy ignited. His rigid frame, coiled like a spring under that faded polo, unwound in real time, shoulders dipping from their defensive perch, jaw unclenching as if a hidden knot had finally given way. The growl in his tone evaporated, replaced by a murmur almost sheepish, the evening's golden light softening the edges of his scowl. Just like that, the invisible line between foe and fellow dissolved. We weren't gladiators in some suburban coliseum anymore, but two locals huddled over a shared snag, brains buzzing with fixes. He leaned on the fence, the wood creaking like an old confidant, and launched into a treasure trove of tips, tales from his own dog-owning days. The pitfalls of dawn patrols and the tricks that tamed them. "Look, I've been there. My old lab was a howler till we tried this," he said, gesturing animatedly, eyes lighting up with the spark of solidarity. He even rattled off a gem of a local trainer who'd worked wonders for his sister's spaniel. Contact details scribbled on the back of an envelope right there under the porch light. What kicked off as a hollerfest? It wrapped with a casual swap of numbers. Him promising a quick text if the chorus cranked up again. Me nodding with genuine thanks. Neighbors from strangers, in the span of a sunset. Ever wonder why this pivot packs such a wallop? Like flipping a switch in a room full of shadows? At its heart, it's all about shattering expectations. Folks gear up for the grudge match when they march in with gripes. Scripting soliloquies in their minds of your squirms, your sidesteps, your swift strikes right back at their ribs. They've armored up for the blame ballet. Excuses flying like confetti in a cyclone. But gratitude? It's the plot twist they never saw coming. A velvet derailment that shunts the whole drama off the tracks of tension and onto the sun-dappled rails of rapport. Suddenly, their battle plans in tatters. And they're scrambling to recalibrate, not to conquer, but to connect. Peel it back further, and the mind's machinery hums with deeper resonance. Profound as an underground river carving canyons unseen. When barbs fly hot and heavy, the hurler often harbors a storm of their own, frustration festering like untreated wood. A sense of helplessness gnawing at the edges. Your thank you for their truth-telling? It's an anchor tossed into that churn, validating the vulnerability beneath the venom, honoring them as a voice that counts in your corner. No dismissal, no duel, just a quiet nod that says, "Your words landed, let's build from here." Adversary to advisor, in a heartbeat's grace. Seneca, that sharp-eyed Roman scribe of the soul, captured it clean. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. This reply? It's the hinge swinging shut on strife, creaking open the dawn of duet. It broadcasts your bedrock security, the kind forged in fires that don't scorch your core, ready to cradle critique. No matter how clumsily couched, even the roughest delivery can't dent that poise. It's the mark of someone who's danced with dragons and emerged with scales intact. Crucial compass, though. Discern the delivery from the driver. This shines when the core complaint carries weight, a real ripple they're riding out, but the rapper's wrapped in wrath or clumsiness. Your thanks spotlights the silver lining of their intent, sidestepping the sludge of their style like a deer bounding a bog. And the miracle? It summons the sun from their storm clouds. Treat a soul as sage and steadfast, even when they've stumbled in the mud, and watch them straighten, stepping into the role you reflect. Expectations? They're shapeshifters. Meet ire with insight, and ire often bows out, blushing. That fence-line firebrand who frothed over my furry alarm clock, he morphed into my go-to guru, dispatching updates and under-the-wire alerts that nipped issues in the bud. Jaw-dropping, right? How a flicker of feeling valued can flip fury to fellowship. The very same thorn twisted into a tool for tending the garden together. Yet shadows linger in every script, not every clash crumbles to calm under courtesy's caress. Some spirits, stubborn as ancient oaks in a gale, dig in deeper, unmoved by mercy's murmur or the mirror of their own muddle. Undeterred by your deft dance, they demand a denouement from a different deck. That's the cue for our fifth and final flourish. Enters the fray with a hush that echoes louder than any roar, the ultimate Stoic seal on our arsenal of elegant escapes. Response number 5. A deliberate silent pause, followed by, "Thank you for that insight." But sometimes, my friends, the mightiest retort isn't forged in the fire of words at all. It's born in the sacred space of stillness. A breath held just long enough to let truth bloom unbidden. When a zinger lands low, outrageous, laced with that bitter edge of intent to wound, don't rush the riposte. Instead, let the moment stretch. Lock eyes with the source. Those few heartbeats ticking like a metronome in a vast hall. 3 seconds that feel like epics. Then, with the poise of a sage untouched by tempests, offer softly, "Thank you for that insight." It's the pause that wields the wand, the heavy lifting falls to that velvet void, compelling every ear in the room to truly absorb the barb's echo. While your serene acknowledgement casts a spotlight on the chasm, their storm-tossed fury against your unrippled sea. I'll carry the scar and the shine of this one forever. From a boardroom battlefield 3 years back that could have cratered my cred but instead crowned it. There I was, heart-thumping like a war drum under my crisp shirt, unveiling a fresh marketing blueprint to a sea of sharp-suited prospects, partners rubbing elbows with a smattering of rivals. The air thick with the scent of polished ambition and fresh brewed tension. Slides clicked smoothly, heads nodded along to my data-draped vision, until midway through dissecting the market's underbelly, my voice weaving stats like threads in a tapestry, the interloper struck. He was a competitor, eyes narrowed like a hawk scenting blood, ego bruised by the blueprint's gleam. Without warning, he sliced in. Hold up, do we really want strategy tips from someone so green in the trenches? Crystal clear. Limited chops here. Why not pivot to a voice with actual street cred? The chamber plunged into a vacuum-sealed quiet, the kind that presses on your chest. Every rustle of paper or shift of chair amplified into accusation. You could taste the room's recoil, the raw aggression hanging raw, unfiltered, like smoke from a misfired cannon, leaving no mistaking its meanness. Inside, the old dragon stirred, that primal rush of heat flooding my veins, urging me to unfurl my battle flag, parade the campaigns I'd captained, the metrics I'd muscled into millions, the skeletons in his own closet I'd politely ignore no more. Fingers itched for the pointer, tongue primed for the takedown. But no, in that electric instant, the stoic anchor dropped. I halted mid-breath, the projector humming its lonely drone, and pinned him with a gaze steady as granite, unblinking, those 3 seconds unfolding like the slow bloom of a night flower under moonlight. The world narrowed to that bridge of silence, his smirk starting to wilt at the edges. Then, exhaling calm as dawn mist, I murmured, "Thank you for that insight." What followed? A hush so profound it thrummed. An auditory abyss where his salvo suspended, festering like a whiff of rot in a banquet hall, suddenly sniffed by all. Impossible to unsmell. Chairs creaked as bodies recoiled. A ripple of unease washing over the assembly, fidgets. Averted eyes. A couple of winces sharp as sympathy stings. No one spoke. The void did the verdict. I stood unscathed. No fortress of facts erected, unnecessary. For his own arrow had looped back, quivering in his quiver, etching his portrait plain. The pettifogging provocateur. All bark and brittle bone. From there, the pitch flowed like a freed river, questions flowing my way. Not his. The energy realigning around the real work. Post-curtain, as spotlights dimmed and handshakes lingered, a quiet procession formed. Whispers in the lobby. Sidelong nods turning to full confessions. That was out of line. One murmured, gripping my arm with apologies. Wait. Your poise? Inspiring. Handled like a pro. The prize at stake. That fat contract dangling like forbidden fruit? We claimed it. Whispers confirmed later. The panel's nod tilted our way. His outburst the unwitting exhibit in poor form's gallery, judgment fouled. Professionalism fractured in full view. Ever ponder why that interlude of quiet claims the crown? The pause isn't mere theater, it's the architect's blueprint. Carving a coliseum where words dangle exposed. Spotlit for the crowd's collective autopsy. In those suspended seconds, minds marinate. The initial shock settles. Filters engage, and the ugliness crystallizes. How crass. How corner-cutting. How utterly off-key. Skip it, and your follow-up risks the whiff of reflex or ridicule. A knee-jerk that kneecaps the craft. But cradle it right, and you unveil the virtuoso, emotional reins gripped iron tight. No tremor betraying the tiller. Layer on that. Thank you. With sincerity's silk, no snark shadowing the edges. But the glow of true regard. As if they've gifted a gem from their trove. Not to lampoon their lunge. Oh no. The aim's loftier. A grace so luminous under fire that their swipe shrinks to schoolyard scuffle by contrast. A flea bite beside your mountain stride. You're ascending the high path in plain sight. A beacon's blaze against their guttering torch. The moral map redrawn for all to trace. Your steadiness as the North Star. There's a wandering spark adrift. Epictetus nailed it. That enslaved sage who schooled emperors. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Here, you incarnate the edict, reactions reign to regal, while their basest urges yank the leash. Puppeteering the fray. It's self-mastery manifest. The quiet forge of fortitude where true titans temper their steel. And in that boardroom hush we just savored, where a mere breath of silence turned sabotage into self-sabotage, you could sense the scales tipping, not toward vengeance, but toward the quiet victory of visible virtue. This fifth response, my friends, gleams with extra luster in the glare of a group gathering. Those charged circles where every glance and gesture etches reputations in real time. Imagine the scene. A conference table ringed with witnesses. The air humming with half-formed opinions. And suddenly, your poise stands as the lone lighthouse amid their lashing waves. It's not just you who sees the chasm, their bluster crashing against your calm like foam on unyielding rock, but the whole assembly. Eyes widening as the focus sharpens not on the sting of their words, but on the shadow they cast with their delivery. Why the venomous vessel? Why the ambush over alliance? In that collective pause, minds pivot. Validity of the critique fades to footnotes, while the raw why of their wrath takes center stage. A spotlight they never auditioned for. The aggressor? They're left dangling in their own draft, cheeks warming under the weight of realization, like a performer mid-flub. Spotlight unforgiving, the house lights flickering on their forgotten lines. They'd scripted your fury in their mind's theater, you, the explosive foil, ranting rebuttals that would validate their venom, hand them the crown of controversy. But no, you serve serenity on a silver tray. A dignity so distilled it shrinks them without a syllable of scorn. Not a whisper of, you're wrong. Just the elegant echo of elevation, leaving them diminished in the mirror you so graciously hold. Isn't it poetic, how restraint can robe you in radiance while unraveling their rags? At its pulsing core, every one of these 5 strokes, channels the Stoic heartbeat. You can't lasso the winds of others' whims, tether their tempests or tame their thorns. But oh, the reins on your own reactions? Those are yours to grip, firm and free, choosing the high wire of grace over the low road of lashback. Patience's steady flame over reactivity's wild spark. You forge a strength that doesn't shout for salutes but summons them unbidden. Respect rippling out like stones skipped on a still pond. Threading through all 5 like a golden vein in marble? That unshakable tether to self-command. A quiet vigil where you guard your garden while they parade their weeds. It's the Stoic sorcery unveiled, not in stacking argument wins like trophies on a shelf, but in cradling your core calm through every curveball chaos hurls. Let them unmask in the melee, you, the sentinel of serenity, emerge etched in esteem. Pause and picture it, the ancient forum under olive boughs. Philosophers pacing dust paths, whispering that our riposts, not the raids against us, carve our legacy in the annals of the soul. These replies? They're the proof in the parchment. Potency blooms not from the fiercest roar or the quickest quip, but from grace's gentle gauntlet, thrown with the weight of worlds behind it. Under pressure's vice, when lesser lights flicker and fail, that's where your true titan shines, unbowed, unbroken, a beacon beckoning better. If these timeless tools have stirred something in you, arming your arsenal for those thorny talks that test the spirit, do me a solid. Drop a like below. That spark of solidarity rippling this ripple of resilience to souls sailing similar storms. And subscribe to Stoic Training, our corner of the cosmos dedicated to chiseling that ironclad inner fortitude. The kind that courts genuine regard and cradles unassailable peace, one deliberate dawn at a time. Remember, in the grand tapestry of exchanges, it's your echoes that endure, your choices that color the canvas. Respond with the wisdom of the ages. Choose, then, not just cleverly, but wisely.